Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. And we are going to be moving right on along here, taking a look at our guide for fixing and upgrading, tweaking, or otherwise just adjusting slightly the very broken but very fun game D20 Modern by Wizards of the Coast. And for today, we're going to be taking a look at changing, modifying, or otherwise adjusting some feats and also adding one or two in. And we're going to limit ourselves to just 5 feats overall today because, well, in the core rulebook, there's already a pretty good list of feats, and past, urban arcana, future, all of these different books added in a whole list of other feats. And oh my god, the advanced classes, the prestige classes, all a lot of them need adjusting and fixing, particularly the skill bonus feats. But we're going to leave those aside for now. These are just 5 examples so far on things that can do a lot to adjust and just make the game flow a bit better, particularly when it comes to combat. So let's just go ahead and get started. And when we get started here, we're going to be taking a look at a classic that's been with Dungeons and Dragons for quite some time now, and that's the Power Attack feat. Now, like its original version, we are going to leave it with the strength requirement of 13 and the base attack bonus of +1. But we are going to change this over to the Pathfinder version of Power Attack. I like it a lot better because, well, normally you're allowed to subtract up to a -5 total from your attack bonus, and you add that in as a +5 bonus on top of your damage. And while that is nice, I think this version just works better and you get more mileage out of it, because what this will do for you is you get a -1 to your attack, +2 to damage, or +3 if you're two-handing. Now, this damage is halved with offhand attacks, so if you're dual wielding, you've got a long sword in one hand, short sword in the other, your damage is going to be +2 with the long sword in your primary hand, and then a +1 with the short sword in your offhand. But when your base attack bonus reaches 4, and then every 4 points thereafter, so at 8, 12, 16, and 20, the penalty will increase by -1, and the damage increases by +2. So by a +4 bonus, you're taking a -2 to your attack, but getting a +4 on damage, or 6 if you're two-handing a weapon. Now, I just love the way it changes the damage output, kind of minimizes the penalties that you take. It just, again, you get better mileage out of this overall. But this does kind of segue us nicely into an issue that has cropped up with D20 Modern, and it's something that it's one of the most commonly complained about issues when it comes to this game, and that's ranged damage. Range damage does not scale quite so well as melee damage does with D20 Modern. And the reason for that is pretty simple, because most of the bonuses that you can get from melee damage are coming from things like your strength score, to handing a weapon, getting strength and a half bonus on top of the regular die damage. And then if your weapon's enchanted, that's another, anywhere from a +1 to a +3 bonus. If you have any of the technological upgrades out of future, any enchantments on it like holy. And then there's different class bonuses that can also help boost your damage as well, like the Shadow Slayer class, which basically think like the Ranger, but only 10 levels. So against your favorite enemies, you're getting bonuses on damage. And there's lots of other little ways that you can boost your damage. And the thing with it is, those are just static numbers being added on top of the die. The die is the only variation there. So say you're using a longsword with a 1d8, but you're getting a +16 bonus. At minimum, you deal 17 points of damage, topping off at 24, assuming you don't crit and deal ×2 damage. Whereas with a firearm, let's say 45, deals 2d6 points of damage. Not bad, pretty respectable. That's comparable to Greatsword from Pathfinder or 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons. But that's all you get out of it. The only way you increase that damage is if you're investing feats and different and different combat abilities like rapid shot and double tap, both of which allow you to get more bullets in the air and add on extra dice of damage. So doing double tap, you get to deal 3d6 points of damage. The minimum you can do is 3, the maximum you can do is 18 unless you crit. You're still coming in lower than the melee fighter is. And well, the only other big advantage that these ranged attackers get is that you can attack at range and you have decent sized magazines and you can fire pretty rapidly in comparison to, well, I was going to say in comparison to a bow, but a bow attacks with basically the same rate as a firearm. So, you can start to see where the issues come in here. But that brings us to the next addition, which I'm sure you've already seen on the screen, and that's bringing in Deadly Aim from Pathfinder. Now, for Deadly Aim, we keep all of the requirements and stuff, dexterity of 13 and a base attack bonus of +1. And much like Power Attack, you get a -1 to attack, +2 to damage, and when your attack bonus reaches 4 and every 4 points thereafter, so again, 4, 8, 12, etc., the penalty will increase by 1 and the bonus to damage increases by 2. The nice thing with this, though, is you can't really do offhand with a bullet. Well, if you're doing two-weapon fighting and gunslinging, you get the whole pistolero thing going on, and you're staring down a room full of villains and thugs. You quick draw out both of those guns and just start blasting away. You can't exactly do 50% less damage. A bullet is a bullet. It's going to fly out of that barrel with the same velocity and hit with that same impact. So the damage actually works better in your favor in this case in comparison to Power Attack. The only drawback to it is you can't exactly go and two-hand a bullet and hit somebody harder with it. But again, this helps to boost your damage output and potential there, and I think it makes a certain amount of sense to have this in there. It doesn't completely close the gap, but I think it definitely makes it a bit more fair, especially when you consider, well, if you're using two pistols, range increments 30 feet for most of them. You go out to 60, 90 feet, and you start taking different penalties for that having that such an extreme range. But you're still in close enough that most melee fighters will close the distance with you in 1 or 2 rounds, especially if they're charging, bull rushing, whatever. So, it evens the playing field. It's not perfect, but then again, I think it's not really supposed to be. There's supposed to be advantages and disadvantages to everything. But, of course, you know me by now. These are not all the feats I have for you. In fact, I already told you there's 5 total, so we got another 3 to go. And next up is Auto Fire. And really, Auto Fire, I've just reskinned and renamed Advanced Firearms Proficiency. And I did that more just because it just kind of eats at me a little bit. Maybe it's just because I've read, written, and done so many different things as far as putting my own little works together. But Advanced Firearms Proficiency implies that you're getting something a little bit more out of it, whereas just having it called Auto Fire, which in this case requires Personal Firearms Proficiency, a character with this feat no longer takes a -4 penalty when making auto fire attacks. That's all Advanced Firearms Proficiency does. It doesn't make you better with more complex firearms, not that there's really... Anyways, the whole idea is you get better at making auto fire attacks, and that's all you really need this for. But the next thing in here is an addition to the overall feat list, and that's improved auto fire. And so the requirements for this, you have to have a dex of 14 and the auto fire feat. You increase the save DC for auto fire to 20, and you roll a 1d4 to see how many bullets hit. Normally, under the auto fire rules, you affect like a 10 by 10, maybe it's 20 by 20 area, firing 10 bullets into that area. And for all the targets in that area have to make a DC 15 reflex save to take half damage, or in the case of fast heroes, no damage. And if you hit, you deal, your regular damage. So say you're using an M14, or I'm sorry, M4. M14 is another weapon entirely, but an M4 deals 2d8 points of damage. Every target in that area that you hit up to a maximum of 10 takes 2d8 points of damage. That seems kind of lame to me. You're doing auto fire, so you roll that 1d4 to see how many bullets hit. The first bullet does regular damage, and maybe you only hit them with one bullet. Maybe you hit them with four bullets. So you get that 2d8. Then each hit after that adds another die to the weapon damage overall. So then you get 3d8, 4d8, topping out at 5d8 total. Which you still have a chance of surviving that. You may only take 5 points of damage out of everything there. But odds are you're probably going to take a significant amount of damage, and most targets will die. But that only makes sense because if you're this proficient with firearms and making auto fire attacks, you're going to have better control over your weapon as you spray and hose down the area. So you could hit targets with multiple rounds. But we'll go ahead and cut it right there because I could probably ramble on a little bit too long and allow my thoughts to get disjointed. Let's move on to our final feat, which is the quick draw feat. Quick draw is just now a meshing of two separate feats, quick draw and quick reload, because really, while the specific motions are not exactly the same, it's still the concept that your hands are just that familiar with your weapon system that, you quick draw out, you can eject the magazine, slap another one in, all in one fluid motion with minimal loss of time and keep on firing. And that's what this does for you. It requires a base attack bonus of 1, drawing a weapon and reloading firearms that use box magazines or speed loaders both count as free actions. Normally, you have to spend two separate feats, one for quick draw and the other one for quick reload. And while improving your action economy is incredibly invaluable, spending two feats to reduce two separate move actions to two separate free actions just didn't really seem like a good cost benefit sort of thing. It seemed like you're investing a little bit too much to get, while you're getting still decent benefit out of it, it's not a good return for the cost of two feats. So we blend the two together and make this work better for you, freeing up at least one more feat to go into something else. And freeing up that one feat is not going to typically be a game breaker, or at least in my experience, it has not been. I'm sure somebody out there could find some way of exploiting that and building something that's ridiculous and broken, especially since the game overall is ridiculous and broken. But I digress. These are just 5 feats that are just my recommendations for improving D20 Modern overall, with a specific emphasis on combat. The skill bonus feats, as I mentioned, they're broken in their own way in that you're getting a +2 bonus to two separate skills, which whoop de fucking do. That's small potatoes and is a bad investment for your feats, especially since combat's most likely to be what kills you. I will say though, those skill feats do stack with the different class bonuses that you can get from being a dedicated hero, uh, smart hero, or charismatic hero. So there is some value there in making sure early on you're jacking up your different skills to uh, uncommonly high points. And you can do a lot with those skills, especially if your DM is willing to be flexible and work with you and allow you to use your skills in effective and meaningful ways. But that doesn't always come up. Not all DMs are like that, and even then, not every situation will justify it, etc., etc., context and all that. But they're just not good feat investments. But we'll get to those maybe down the line in a later video. But next time around, we are going to take a look at condensing down and maybe tweaking a couple of skills, because some of those skills, there's just some overlap that really is kind of irritating after a while. Even though some of the classes do get an incredible amount of skill points, you still have a lot of skills that can be potentially useful, and some things just make sense to have for a character. So we'll look at adjusting that next time around. But If you enjoyed today's video, why not go on down there and click on that like button and let me know about it, or leave a comment if you agree, disagree, or have your own changes or tweaks. Certainly love the exchange of information. I love talking with people. Uh, Absolutely go on down there and let's start a discussion over this. But if you've also enjoyed today's video, I've got two more over here that are going to be popping up for you. One something that I've done recently, the other is something the almighty algorithm thinks that you may enjoy from this channel. And if you've enjoyed things overall here, if you've been loving the content, then hell, go ahead and go on down there and hit that subscribe button and join the community here, become an alumni here at the Gamers Den. But once again, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.